Hi, welcome back to Studio Psalms. I'm your host Coda, and today's episode is called God is Our Anchor. And if we go look at Luke chapter 8, verses 22 to 25, it says this. It came to pass on a certain day that he went into a ship with his disciples, and he said unto them, Let us go over unto the other side of the lake. And they launched forth, but as they sailed, he fell asleep, meaning Jesus fell asleep. And there came down a storm of wind on the lake, and they were filled with water and were in jeopardy. And they came to him and awoke him, saying, Master, Master, we perish. Then he arose and rebuked the wind and the raging of the water. And they ceased. There was a calm. And he said unto them, Where is your faith? They being afraid wandered, saying one to another, What manner of man is this? For he commandeth even the winds and water, and they obey him. Now, for many who don't know what an anchor is, an anchor is I don't know what the shape is, but it's like a U at the bottom with a line. But it's some type of heavy equipment on a boat that is supposed to be dropped with a chain to hold you and to be stabilized in a certain area you want to stop at. So if we look at it, this is the definition of it. An anchor prevents the ship from drifting due to wind and currents, a process also known as anchoring. The anchor's purpose is to provide stability and security. Now, take this back to God. God's purpose for our life is to provide us with stability and security. His purpose for our life is to get us more like Jesus. He already saved us. He already gave us grace. And the purpose for our life is to be just like Jesus, to be aligned with his will, to save more people. Because since Jesus saved us and we received the gospel, it is now our turn to go out into the world and, help others. So when you go through a storm, whatever storm it is, no matter if it's like a mental storm, physical storm, or a spiritual storm, when you're in it, God is always going to be there with you. Now, if going back to what I just read about Luke chapter 8, verses 22 to 25, or 24, I think I said, 25. So while they were in the boat, their faith was wavering because they saw something coming. They saw something they couldn't handle. They couldn't handle coming their way, so they got afraid. So they lost sight of what was with them and started to focus on what was coming. So many times in our life, we like to focus on the distractions or the battles that are in front of us, not knowing that even though the battle is there, somebody's already in front of us holding it and going through it. So when Jesus was on that cross, just like in that same pose of just like this is just how he is in front of us every single day. So the storm is coming, but it's not hitting us. The storm is coming, but Jesus is like this in front of us, saying, I got you. I'm your anchor. I am your stronghold. I am your safe place. I am your refuge. So when we're focused more on the storm, we start to lose sight of what Jesus is doing in front of us. We start to lose sight that he died on the cross for us to save us. Even though we may go through the storm, we're going to get through it. We're not going to stay stuck in it. So when Jesus was in that boat, he was the anchor for the boat. Even when it looked like they weren't moving, even when it looked like they were going to die. No, because Jesus was still there. Jesus was resting. Now, if we go look at this is what I wrote down. I have many notes, and I like to do this because it gives me a better understanding of what God was telling me in the moment. It says this. It says, so when God has us anchored, we can't move without him removing the anchor from the season, the rest, and the trials. When he lets the anchor down, don't go moving, because without the anchor, the storm may toss you back and forth. But when you have the anchor in the storm, you may sway, but you won't go crashing. So God told me the other day that when I was making this, when he was revealing it to me of God being our anchor, he said, sometimes in life we like to be self-anchored. We like to place our own anchors where God wants us to have him anchored in our life. Now, I'm going to take you to a moment of, if you go to the gym, if you're just starting, you're in a certain way, or certain days you don't feel like lifting heavy weights. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying in this point of view of self-anchoring and God anchoring, God's anchor will always look heavier to the eye. It will always look heavier because what he has for us is always going to be greater. But in the self anchoring of our own, if our of our own, what's the word? Got opinion or something like that. We like to make our own anchors lighter because it seems easier. So God's anchor may look like 100 pounds to a person who can only lift 25 pounds. So we like to get our anchors even smaller. So we might go to 15 pounds or 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever. Because God's anchor from the eye always looks bigger, always looks like it's more and it's more problems. But yes, when God has us, more problems come our way because the enemy is trying to get at us. The problems doesn't mean God is trying to punish us. It means God is loving us more and more, knowing that when we have him, we can handle it. When our faith is anchored in him, we can handle it. So when we're focused on self-anchored and God's anchor being higher and much more harder, we lose sight of the purpose, the will of God, the plan that God has for us. So we start focusing on self-anchoring, the enemy's way of getting us back into our old ways, the enemy's way of leading us into temptation, the enemy's way of getting us to sin. Now this says, I have a few questions of what I wrote, and this is what God said to me. Why try and reel in the anchor when he placed it there? We're so busy trying to take what God placed, remove it so we can place something else there. Again, removing God's anchor to place our anchor so it can be lighter. Not knowing that when we place that anchor down from our self point of view, our self opinions, our self power, the anchor it's so small. I think the word I was looking for is minuscule. It's so small, it won't even hold the boat. It wouldn't even hold the boat that God had us in. So why reel it in to place something else there? Why take God out of the place and try to place yourself in his throne? Why take God off the throne in your life, trying to place you on the throne? Because again, this life is not ours. We died to this life when we gave our life to Jesus. When we surrendered and said, God, have your way in us, we didn't say, God, have your way in us just for this moment, just because I needed money, just because I couldn't beat the sexual urge, just because I didn't know what relationship would come, just because I had depression. No, we said, God, come into us, change our hearts, change our minds, renew us, creating us a new heart, a new mind. For we received you, and we shall obey you. We shall obey your commandments. So why again are we trying to place our own anchors? This is what this says. Another question. Why move if he placed you there? So when Jesus and his disciples are in the boat, why didn't they just rest? I've wondered that so many times. Like, if Jesus went to go rest and they knew Jesus went to go rest, why didn't they rest with him? Because they seen multiple things he did. They seen a lot of things. And they came from a miracle that he did before they went to the boat just to go to the other side of the lake. But then they lost it. Because when he was with them, they were safe on land, or they weren't really safe, but they were safe enough with Jesus. But once Jesus fell asleep, he went quiet. They couldn't hear him. Jesus didn't see the storm, but he knew it was coming. He knew it was there because he's the Son of God. But little did they know, they didn't see the storm. They just saw the boat. It was clear skies until the storm came. So they got distracted. They misplaced Jesus with the storm. So when they ran to Jesus saying, Master, Master, they thought they were going to die. They thought it was all over for them. They started to get distracted in the mind. They removed the anchor and placed their own anchor. This is what I said. You aren't holding yourself in place. God is the anchor that isn't stuck but firmly placed. Meaning that we're not the ones who hold us. We're not the ones who are who are holding ourselves in place in our life. We're not the one who holds power. We're not the authority of our own lives. God is. He is our firm foundation. He is our ever-present help. And once we start to lose sight of that, we're like that one scripture. I forgot what it was, but he built a house like it was on some sand. And I think it was like the waves came and just swept it away. We're like that when we lose sight of God's firm foundation. But once our eyes stay stuck on him, we're able to stand on water, walk on water with him. Because back to the story where Peter wanted to walk on water with Jesus. He had faith in the moment to walk out on the water. But once he saw the waves crashing and the storms, he lost focus. He took his eyes off of Jesus and went to go sink. So when we're taking our eyes off Jesus, we're taking our eyes off the anchor. Once I said before that it's an unseen battle. So even though we know we have the anchor and it goes down, we may not see it or where it's going to land, but we can trust in it that it's going to hook us. It's going to keep us safe. But once we try to focus on the anchor and where it's at, we get out of the point. We're moving God from the driver's seat and telling God, come look at this. Come look at what's under here. We're more focused on what's what's around us more than what we're in or what we're on or what our trust is. Our faith is in God, not in the world. Our faith is not in what's surrounded around us. It's where we're placed. It's who we trust in. It's who placed us here, not where we're placed. It's who placed us there. Again, says we tend to remove God's anchor from our eyesight or our mind sight, which causes us to place our own anchor or fishing rod to then remove and catch what we think is good, because when it is placed by us, we know how to remove it, but if it's placed by God, we have no idea how to remove it because we aren't the creator of the anchor. And when I said we know how to remove it, I meant that when we place it in our lives, we know how we placed it, we know what we can do to remove it. But little do we know that even if we know how to remove it, it's not going to help us in the next season. It's not going to help us in this season or the next season. It may help us for a quick moment because that's what you feel is good. To defeat sin, you don't go outside asking people who are sinful, people who don't believe, for help. You don't go asking, what's the word I'm looking for? I already said non-believers. Yeah, I'll just stick that. You don't go asking non-believers for help if they don't even know what to help with. You can't ask a person who commits sexual sin how to flee from sexual sin. So why are you trying to ask yourself how to remove something from yourself? Because truthfully, you can't ask the flesh to remove the flesh, because the flesh only wants to commit sin, and self only wants to commit what self wants to do. But when we ask God how to remove something, God will tell us, come to him. He has a plan. He has a purpose. His will is always going to be greater than ours. God can only remove what we allow him to remove. We can't remove what we allow ourselves to remove because it won't be removed. It will still be there because we're still going to be thinking about it. But once we give it to God, he can remove whatever we're going through. And I don't mean remove as in just take away. And I'm not saying he can't, but I mean remove as go through it so we don't have to go through it again. And for the last thing ever of this video, it's really just this. God's anchor is viewed with more problems or delays or struggles. But in it, we are not settling Yeah, we are not settling, but we are still moving, just not how you expected moving to look like. And what I meant by that is certain points in our life, as I always say, we feel like we're supposed to be farther or we're supposed to have much more because that's what the enemy wants us to see. That's what our self help wants us to see. That if we just help ourselves, we can move faster. If we just put faith in what we do, many people see here that if nobody's going to do it for you, do it for yourself. But no, that's not true. If nobody's going to do it for you, God will do it for you, as long as it aligns with His will. So if you're surrounded in a boat with people, as they were, it may look like, as again, if nobody can do it for you, do it for yourself. So they were stuck in the storm. They were struggling. They lost faith. They felt like nobody could help them. So they lost faith in the one who was with them, who Jesus was, chose to go wake him up out of the rest that he was giving them time to rest. He knew they were going to act like this, but he trusted in them to know that he was with them, so they forgot in an instant. They forgot that Jesus was with them. They forgot that God was with them. They forgot that they had authority over the storm because they were given authority. They forgot that the many miracles he did were so wonderful. Then they lost sight of the blessing that they were in. They were in a boat with Jesus. They were anchored with Jesus, but they removed the anchor. They decided to disable the anchor, to push aside the anchor and to trust in their own courage, the power that they had in some type of way. But truthfully, they didn't have it. They didn't have power. They didn't have authority. They didn't have enough strength to go through it. So they replaced strength with weakness, which then became fear, which then became misleading. So when they called on Jesus saying, Master, Master, we perish, they were saying, God, I don't trust you for this. We are going to die. We are going to be swallowed up by a storm. But little did they know that even if that storm came while Jesus was resting, if they just rested, if they just chose to trust in him, they wouldn't have worried about it. And even if when they came to him, they still came to him. Even though their faith were little, they still came back to Jesus. Because even after that, again, he said unto them, where is your faith? And they being afraid wandered, saying to one to another, what manner of man is this? They forgot who he was. But even before they forgot, he still rebuked the wind and the raging of the water, and they ceased. So even when their faith wavered, because sometimes our faith may do that because that's what the enemy wants. Even after they removed the anchor from their eyesight, from their visual, from the spiritual enhancement, God was still there. God still rebuked it and told it, peace be still. That was in another version, another scripture. It said, peace be still. And it was calm. So if I could leave you with anything, it would be, don't forget who's in the boat. Don't forget who your anchor is. Because once you forget who the anchor is or whose boat you're in, you lose sight and you start focusing on the storms. Keep your eyes on Jesus so you won't sink. Keep your eyes on Jesus so the storm won't swallow you up. When you consume the word, when you consume more of Jesus, you don't consume more of the world. Don't put self-anchors in place where God's anchor is.